Good day, and welcome to part one of the three-part lecture on week two for MIS for HR MBA students. Let's go straight. For this week, we have been concentrating on information systems, organizations, and strategy. Basically, that relationship between systems, organizations, in terms of information systems. That's on one side, organizations on the other side, and the strategies to make these two work very well. Achievement of goals. On that, we will have some four main things to focus our attention on. One, let's spend some time understanding what organizations are, especially that managers will need to know relative to information systems. Two, the impact of information systems on organizations, and I want to add, and vice versa. We'll also want to spend some time looking at Porter's competitive forces model, what value chain is, value web, core competencies, network economics, and so on. Then we look at the main challenges that information systems pose to organizations, especially these days, and how to go around that. So first of all, features of organizations, and also we want to look at as we go how these features of these organizations will have some influence on technology that should be deployed, and technology that has been deployed, what influence of the organization it will, what feature of the organization it will influence. Number one is structure. Basically, when we talk of structure, we are talking of, let me put it this way, hierarchy. Okay. The long and short of it is that before you implement a technology solution in an organization, you should be looking at the structure. And the structure here will normally determine how information flows. So it should not be that, for example, in a hospital, um a ward assistant will key in data and that is immediately available to a pharmacist. No, it should be the way it is, the structure as it is, that maybe a doctor should prescribe and then that is what is available to a pharmacist, using that as an example. On the other hand, what we say is that once technology is introduced, normally it will affect the structure. And that is summarized by saying that normally technology will end up flattening the organization. When we say it is flattening the organization, what we mean is that it reduces the cumbersomeness of information flow from the top to the bottom. So in an organization that is, let's say, 4 or 5 levels high or even more, once technology is introduced, normally you kind of get a situation where it now begins to look like it is flat. The bottom guys can easily communicate with the guys at the top. Imagine a WhatsApp group, what it does in an organization. The structures are immediately broken. Second thing is you need to focus on the business processes. Of course, business processes define what an organization is. Every organization has its own unique way of doing business. So you take, for example, you have sales unit, you have marketing unit, you have finance unit. These, the way they work varies from organization to organization. And it's the same thing. So you don't assume that technology will be what we always say, one size fits all, that it's will get into organization and once it works well at TTH, it should work at Central Hospital. No. All right. Even though their business processes may look alike. The politics of it, here I'll be quite fast because we've talked about this in class. Politics, we are talking about the informal decision-making processes and how people group around issues. Issues here could be religion, could be ethnicity, could be just the mere fact that somebody is influential. And those things influence how things are done. Okay. Culture, yes. Let's look at it as situations where people already have a certain attitude of coming late and closing early, or in situations where people come very early and close very late and they are very busy throughout. This is the two extremes of work culture as we have it. There are organizations where people work by deadlines. There are organizations where people, well, you just bring it, put it there. Next time we meet, we'll talk about it. Then when we meet to talk, we'll also talk about what to discuss in the next meeting. Basically, so Technology will work or not work depending on the culture of the place. At the same time, what we are saying is that culture is one of the features of an organization, that there are some of these arrangements in between. Environment, here we will talk about the external environment, and we've looked at that in class: political, economic, social, cultural, technological, legal environment. You understand this better than I do, I'm sure. The last feature is that in every organization, there is a way management decisions are made. Okay. Even in a one-man organization, we can say yes, all the decisions are made in one person's head. So that is even the way it is done. In other organizations, you have meetings, you have all sorts of things, memos are written. The way management decisions are made, if you are introducing a technology, you will need to take cognizance of that and make sure that it takes care of that. Otherwise, if you open it up, oh, okay, so and so should make an input before a decision is made. Yet in real life, that is not the case. Your system will likely fail. Okay. In short, what we are saying is that yes, these are the features of an organization, and these things will influence what kind of system will work, or even if the system will work. At the same time, when a system is introduced, it will influence the features. So even then, what is an organization? Depending on how you look at it. You could look at it from the technical perspective or from the behavioral perspective. From the technical perspective, you are basically looking at a formal structure or a legal entity where there are rules, there are procedures, and so on. From the behavioral perspective, we are concentrating on the human beings or even the units that are made up of human beings, where it's an aggregation of privileges, rights, obligations, responsibilities, and so on. And these are balanced. It is actually the act of balancing it that makes the organization do what we call work. If you take, for example, in a typical company, marketing unit will want to spend a lot to make a huge impact on their intended market. Finance unit will say, no, we cannot spend that much. This is a conflict. How it is resolved is how work goes on. Okay. We are still on the features of organizations, and we are saying that for every organization, there's always a hierarchical structure. Even in a one-man situation, that is a hierarchy on its own. That there is always a system of accountability and authority. That is, people will report through a certain process, and with the emphasis that it allows for impartial decision making. There is also, as much as possible, the adherence to the principle of efficiency, that is trying to reduce waste. Okay. And then we always have routines and business processes. I may spend a bit more time on this in the subsequent presentation. But for now, suffice to know that routines are the small, small things you do. A group of routines will define your business process. So if you take um, So let's say you take the example of a sales office. Okay. The process of planning, this is where we will go. Somebody should be planning the route. Somebody should be organizing fuel. Somebody should be making sure the vehicle is in place. These are routines. When you put them together, we get a business process called sales. Okay. And every business process is made up of small, small routines as elicited here. Also, one of the features that there's always the organizational politics, culture, environments, and structures. We've discussed this previously. A number of industries will give you a market or an economy. We'll talk about that. Disruptive technologies. I've tried to make sure that all our presentations are under 10 minutes. Run out of time, so I'm going to be very snappy about this. We'll talk more about it in class when we meet, and I think we even discussed that. Normally, a disruptive technology is a technology that will bring about a massive sweeping change in an industry. If you take, for example, what internet did, it virtually killed newspapers. That was a disruptive technology. On a non-information technology aspect, take Yellow Yellow, for example. When they came in, they virtually wiped out taxis. That was a disruptive technology, so to say, in this case. And when technology is introduced, normally you have the first movers who are actually those inventing it and those trying it for the first time. And then you have the fast followers. Usually these people have money, or their companies have money to grab onto it. And then the rest of us will follow. So take, for example, smartphones. You will say the Samsungs, the Apples and co were the first movers, and then the first few people who bought it were the fast followers. The rest of us followed later. So thank you. We've gotten to the end of session one of